Don't know if I can even do it. Hello and welcome back to the Overdue Sports Show, episode 5 of the Overdue Sports Show. I'm your host, Jake Sawinski, accompanied, as always, by Will Massa. How we doing, Will?
Good. It's slammed with college baseball season, but ready to diversify a little bit and talk some foreign nations and maybe bash the NBA All-Star game a little bit.
Definitely the second one. But yes, as is custom, as you are seemingly an insider, at least between the two of us, how did your first weekend of college baseball betting go?
It was solid. I split most of the days, including today. I split again, but my splits have all been on the positive side. So I'm not losing when I split. So I'll take that any day of the week and had one big day. I believe right now I'm 7-6 for plus a unit and a half, which, still figuring things out, seeing where teams land. So this early in the season, just to be green and get some wins under the belt is good. If you have been following for a while, last year I started off really, really cold, ended up being down 11 or 12 units by the halfway point, recovered and finished the season up 8 or 9 units. So that back half of the season, I got really hot and started seeing the board really well. But starting on the right foot is huge because for me, if I am up, I can play around a little bit more and take some stabs that maybe I normally wouldn't play. So I always like starting off hot. That's always a big piece for me.
Any big takeaways from, a couple of the teams you watch? I know you probably watched all day, Friday,
Oh yeah.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. And today. My big takeaway, at least from a betting standpoint, is I think Penn State is going to be very better friendly this year. We talked about them last week. Kind of, they're one of my favorites in the Big Ten. But I just think from a line perspective, based on what I saw this weekend, they're going to be in that short dog, short favorite realm all season. And I'm going to be looking to take them a lot. They looked real sharp in Puerto Rico. So that's going to be a super better friendly team. And I'm getting my eyes on some teams that I'm going to like in midweek spots, because those midweek spots, you get the Stetsons of the world, and Stetson showed out this weekend. They were really good, but I'll be willing to bet when we hit April, they're plus 300 against Florida and plus 4.5 runs. So
Yeah, they'll give them a
those are
game.
those are worth a stab, and they did it last year a couple of times. So those are the teams that I like to look for early, is who's going to be feisty in these midweek games that I can take advantage of. Because for me, betting midweeks isn't necessarily what favorite is going to win, but what favorites or what dogs are going to keep it close, and then which favorites are going to win. So when favorites have good matchups, I'll parlay 3 favorites for plus 150, like 3 heavy favorites, but it's avoiding the ones where I'm like, that team is pretty good. Like a Stetson against the Florida. Like I would avoid that and say, okay, maybe we take Stetson plus 4.5 runs, and they end up losing by 1, or they lose by 2, or they win outright. So that's really the information I try to gather on the smaller teams this early in the year, is who do I think is going to be good. When we get into like the nitty gritty of the season, and Florida comes off a grinder series against number 1 Texas A&M, and then they play Stetson on Tuesday, and Stetson looks to beat them in those games. The little brother angle. So very similar to college basketball in that way, but it was a good weekend for me. It's always good to start off on the right foot.
Any teams that you were a little disappointed by?
Arizona. I was very high on Arizona. I mentioned I liked them to win the Big 12. They started off their season 0-4. The offense just wasn't clicking, and I still have a lot of confidence in that group, but they've got a really, really tough schedule ahead. So hoping they turn the tides pretty quickly, but they did not show the way that I anticipated week 1, which is to be expected. I mean, they played a couple of ranked teams in there. Yeah, but I think they'll turn the tides. I'm still excited for that group.
That's good. That's good. And I did tell you on the Penn State College World Series future, I got it at 60-1. So I am officially a Nittany Lion this year. I tailed you on Friday. I also missed Arizona and got Penn State. So you cost me like 0.15 units. I will be requesting that eventually. I'm just kidding. All right. Any other takeaways from college baseball? I know you're probably like fatigued from talking about it all the time and tweeting about it all the time. And you like it though. What's your thing?
Oh, I love it. I'm just excited to be betting it again. It's fun for me because it's the only sport that I put out my picks for, because every other sport I'm like either okay or bad at. So it's like for me, this is like the fun time of year where I'm like I can actually share my insight a little bit on the betting side as well as the information side. So I get a kick out of that.
That's something I should contribute to a little better too, because I can bet college football and I can bet NHL. NHL this year's been a little strange because I've been doing a lot of dumb stuff like
the Sharks ladder.
No, Sharks ladder, Red Wings ladder. Even though I'm 2-0 in Red Wings ladder, so I'm never doing a Red Wings ladder again. But like I'm up like 20, 25 units, but it's been like as low as -15 and as high as 40. I'm just like, if I bet a dog, I do it -1.5 the other way. If I like a favorite, I'll do 1.5, and if the spot, like I really like the spot, I'll do 2.5. I think I've bet the Predators on like 6 of their 6-game losing streak. I think I finally got them against the Sabres, and I'm like, well, I gotta like just give up because they're never gonna win again. So it's been a really kind of a roller coaster season, but like mostly up 25 to 30 units, just kind of trading back and forth. No complaining, but I don't know if I'd get any biters on Sharks plus 1.5, Sharks money line, Sharks -1.5, Sharks team total over. Yeah, I don't think anyone's tailing a 5-unit play on the Sharks. You can fade those too, but anyways, let's talk about the Four Nations a little bit. Little bit of a different all-star format this year for the NHL. It's got USA, Canada, Finland, and Sweden. I haven't been watching a ton of it. I did watch USA and Canada Saturday night. That was sick. Kachuk's brawling right as the game started. Seems like I think every game has kind of had something like that. But what are your thoughts on what's going on there?
Electric. And in the wise words of a good friend of the program, Sam Fosberg, the Kachuk brothers are American heroes for what they did. It's just been awesome, man. It's such a fun format. And the hitting in it as well, like it's different from a regular NHL All-Star game. I mean, I saw Charlie McAvoy lay out Connor McDavid twice in that game. So it's like, stars aren't even off limits in those. So it's a ton of fun. And it gets people involved. I mean, I just always equate it to the baseball equivalent of the WBC. Like the WBC is an absolute blast when it comes around every year or every couple of years. And so for the NHL to kind of incorporate that, I think is really, really good. And I think it's gotten a lot of people involved. I mean, I know people that don't even watch hockey that are tuning into these games just because it's like, this is awesome. Like, let's watch this.
Like the patriotism piece of it, playing for your country, that's a real big motivator for the players, and like the product on the ice is also, getting some really benefit from that. Yeah. And it's not like, even like the MLB All-Star game's a little bit laxed, right? Like they play, they're trying out there, but like you don't get the same competitive feeling. These guys are like, it's an actual hockey game. They're not playing 3-on-3, 3-on-3, 6-7 score, nothing like that. Which is funny because when we talked about like we had the little segment last week or the week before about like the All-Star games and how like the NFL needs to cancel the Pro Bowl or whatever. It's really funny that we totally neglected to talk about this. And we just assumed they were doing the same format as they usually do. Yeah, I had no idea. We're dumb. It's okay. Please listen to us. But yeah, we just totally didn't talk about it, and it turns out they've just made what they had even better. One thing I will say though, it kind of, I don't want to bring up geopolitics on this show whatsoever, but it does kind of stink that Russia doesn't have like their own team, because like there's a lot of talented Russian players in the NHL too. So, I mean, I think I saw something on Instagram, like they were interviewing some of the players before, like, oh, what's one guy like you'd wish you'd have on your team? And half a dozen of the guys said Alexander Barkov, and he's a Russian guy. So I don't even know if like they're playing, if they just get to watch. They don't have a team. Yeah. And you play for the country that you have a team with, so I imagine they're just at home. Obi wouldn't play anyways. That guy's drinking Coca-Cola and eating ketchup and mustard with his fries, mix them together. He's a weirdo. Damn good hockey player though. But yeah, that's been a really fun watch. Playing at weird times though, because it's like a tournament format, so it's not like a centralized event. Like I think Sweden and Finland played today or something. There's Canada and Finland played today. I don't even remember, but yeah, definitely a big fan of what's going on there. Unlike what's going on in the NBA, what the hell is that about?
We did mention when we talked about the Pro Bowl that neither of us even watched the NBA stuff because it's really not exciting. Like, kind of poo-pooed on the dunk contest still. The 3-point contest is kind of the one thing they had going for them. And I want to get your opinion on this. I saw a lot of people upset that LeBron James was not participating in it. And like, I get it. He's 40 something. He's up there.
40, I don't know. 41, 42.
41. Yeah. So like, I get it for him. Like he says, oh, my ankle's sore. My foot doesn't feel well. So I'm not going to play in it. Like I get it from that standpoint, but from a fan perspective, like those are the guys you want to see. And like, yeah, the MLB All-Star Game has guys that don't participate. Like we have a lot of pitchers that opt out of it now, which is a shame, but that's just kind of the world of sports we're in. Like, I don't take super exception to it, but I just thought it was interesting the amount of people that were kind of out on him because of it. Kind of equating it to them sitting out in the regular season, which in my opinion is valid. I think that's the worst part about the NBA product is that guys sit out every other game or every third game. Like at that point, just shorten the schedule. I mean, you pay to go to a game and then you get there and you find out 4 of the 5 starters aren't playing that day and they're in sweatsuits and have no intention of stepping on the court. It's automatically a worse product.
Yeah, I see both sides of it as well. Like, for LeBron James, it's like, what more do you really have to prove by doing, all this
Right.
nonsense for, like, Candace Parker and Shaq had Team Kenny, Kenny the Jet, and it's like, what are we doing? We made a joke like, what's the over-under going to be, 330? I look, it's like 40. What? Like, they had, like, teams at 21. It's like, I don't understand just the product in itself. Let me finish your point, though, or your question, though. Like, the NBA is a little different, like, where the fans go to see these big names, right? It's not like a football game where it's like, oh, Josh Allen's playing against Lamar Jackson. Like, they're always going to play. It's just a totally different thing. The NBA, it's like, it's a superstar-driven league where, you have 1, 2, or 3 guys on a team that really drive your ticket sales. And it's like, you get fans from out of town, or Joel Embiid's playing in Milwaukee and you live in Milwaukee and you want to see him play. Turns out he sits out. That's kind of, it's just a different kind of thing. That's the part that sucks about it. And what's the solution to that? I don't think it's like the format thing. That's kind of what I was going to get into. It's like the NBA is trying all these different things, and it's like, guys, it's not the format of the All-Star game. It's not what the players want to do, right? Oh, will LeBron James be more inclined to play a pickup game for 10 minutes? No, like he won't. Like, I think that is counterproductive to you enticing your best players to actually play in it. Like, I don't think they want that. The problem they have is the product. You have all these talented players who just feel inclined to sit out because they're not necessarily discouraged from doing so. Sorry, frog in my throat. But like, oh, you can't win a season award. They don't freaking care. The same 3 people are in the race for MVP every year anyways. Like, they don't care. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to address that. You have to penalize guys like handily for being like, oh, you're load managing? Okay, you're not making as much money. That would totally change it. And of course, naturally, you can't do that because they sign a contract and all that stuff. But like, that's a perfect solution. Just be like, all right, we're not paying you. You're paying what you play. If they did it by game basis, these guys would never sit out. They'd get injured more, but like, they'd never sit out. That's like, you have to address like why guys sit out all the time. And it's not the 82 game schedule either. Like hockey does it too, and those guys, like, you have to drag them off the ice. Like, I want to go play, dude. Your leg is like your shin is out of your leg. You can't skate. Yeah, I can't just tape it up. It's you know what I mean? It's different, but like you have to think of a different solution than just, oh, what will make the fan more engaged? Because I don't think it's a fan engagement problem.
No, I agree. And I don't know the actual, but the World Baseball Classic of the basketball world. I guess it's actually the Olympics because they do Olympic basketball. Like, I think that actually gets more eyes on it than like an NBA All-Star game because of the patriotism thing, like feeds into it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would incorporate that because it's not hockey and it's not baseball where the league is majority filled up with people from different countries. So the NBA is a little bit different in that, right? But even if you could put together like a European versus American All-Star game, like I think that would actually be kind of fun. Like I think you could
Something
draw
like
some
that.
viewership.
And you can't really fault them for like trying different things, but it just, me as like a casual observer, like I don't watch a ton of the NBA, but it's not because of, oh, college basketball is way better. College basketball has all of the things that fans like watching. I don't like when people are like, "Oh, the NBA is by far a superior product." No, it's not. Like the players are much
Players are
better. Absolutely, it's their job to be better. Like they should be better. You're getting paid millions of dollars to be better. You should be better. But it's the other things. It's, you know what I mean? Like, could college basketball have an all-star game? Yeah. Would it work? No, because they're terrible. You know what I mean? It's like you have to think of solutions to your issue, like not like everyone else. People like don't watch baseball because of the time constraint, right? Like that was the argument. But that's totally different when you have a rather sedentary game and it's a 3 to 4 hour thing, and 2.5 to 3 of those hours are just standing there. It's just a totally different game. You know what I mean? Why are we trying to like address the fans' attention span when like the fans are telling you what the problem is? Like they sit out games. They look lackadaisical on defense. Draymond Green is like, I wouldn't say he's a star anymore, but he's like your most notorious player in your league. And he is saying, he has his own podcast, he has his own platform, and I think he's very well listened to, says all it's about is how many great players we can stack up on one team, and it's a 3-point contest. That's how your game is being played now. Not necessarily through the fault of the NBA. That's just how basketball, that's what it's gravitating towards. Find a solution with that. You know what I mean? What are the fans complaining about? Oh, the way, like, you can give guys Oscars for their performance on the court sometimes. Oh, sell fouls and fall over. Make them like penalized for that. Call an offensive foul. Call a technical foul. But we have that. Then why don't your officials call it? They do it all the time. People have been complaining for 10 years about James Harden and his step back three, how it's a travel. Call it a travel. He'll stop doing it. Every time he touches the ball, he turns it over. He'll be like, oh, I can't do this move anymore because I won't get paid money because I average 0 points a game on 20 turnovers. It's not hard. Fix the rules of your game.
It was really interesting. I was listening to Trevor May talk about it because we've seen the way that advanced analytics have like taken over sports, and you see it in baseball. Like a lot of hitters are trending towards 3 outcome: home run, strikeout, walk. Those are 3 outcomes, right? And in basketball, but there's ways to get around that in baseball. Like there's ways to like change that. Like not every player can walk out and hit 40 home runs. So like the profile of player affects that a little bit. But with basketball, the advanced analytics, what does it say? Layups and dunks and 3-pointers. That's how you win a game. And how do you combat? Like, I don't know how you can combat that from a rule standpoint, where in other sports, you can kind of discourage people from doing that. Like if you go out there and you say, I'm going to be a 3 outcome guy, and you hit 15 home runs and strike out at a 40% clip, you probably don't have a job the next year.
No.
It can't be where like in the NBA, you can have every single guy who's not your big man down low who dunks and layups and grabs rebounds. you teach them to bomb threes. And I don't know how you discourage that.
Yeah, see, that's kind of the issue because, like, I think the entire NBA problem is like partly the NBA's problem. AAU ball is horrible for the NBA. It's horrible for college basketball. It's horrible for any team standpoint you would put on basketball. Like, you're watching, centers are like not a thing in the NBA anymore. And you're starting to even see it in college a little bit, not with the 3-point shooting, but like the lack of any kind of fundamental big man play. Like, you don't see it anymore. Like, a guy like Drew Timme played center. He's undersized a little bit. And his post game was incredible. Like, they did I don't know if it was technically the G League or whatever, but like Frank Kaminsky and him are going back and forth. And those are two college darlings that are playing pro ball. And like, Kaminsky was a journeyman, but like, he wasn't anything special, nor was he really expected to be, right? But he was kind of a stretch 4, stretch 5 player where he could shoot a little bit, but all his other things, like, he could still play center. He's got post game. He can play behind like with his back to the basket. You lose all of that just because of like how AAU's played, you know? It's all me. And if I can't shoot, I can't play. There's no, you know what I mean? It's just like the basketball itself being played is so different than it was 10, 15 years ago. And that is something the NBA can address, you know? And I think we're going to get to a point where, like, okay, the super team piece of it, like Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal on a team, that didn't work. I think we're getting away from that. It's like Boston won it last year with organic homegrown talent for the most part, right? I think they had one guy come in. I think it was Gordon Hayward, but it didn't quite work out. But like, organically, they kind of, got to where they wanted to go with the guys they, had the entire time. The Nuggets did the same thing. So I think we're kind of gravitating away from the superstar, the big three era of basketball, pro basketball. So I think we're going to start to see that fundamental gameplay come back a little bit. But yeah, it's just, to me, it's the solution needs to be not like, how are other sports fixing it? Because other sports are different. It's like your fans literally tell you like, the games are unwatchable half the time because of how the game is being played. There are little things you can do to tweak that. I don't know, a little long-winded, but that's kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah, and I think that still is what makes the college game so much more watchable, and has nothing to do with talent or skill, because like you said, like especially when you get down into, you're watching mid-major basketball, it's an entirely different world. Like you're lucky if you have one guy on your team that bombs threes really well.
Yeah, literally.
But you have this weird gap, and that's where college lives. I think college is like the gap of where basketball is still the product that people want to watch from a gameplay standpoint. Because when you get into high school and AAU, it's all transition. There's no big man, this or that. You get into college and you actually see some guys that play that way. I mean, we just watched Zach Edey do it for a handful of years at Purdue. So like those guys exist, but then those guys get to the pros and it's like they kind of get squeezed out sometimes. I think he's going to be fine just because he's like a body, but he's probably going to turn into a guy that's layups and rebounds.
Yeah. Or they're going to develop a shot for him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a handful of guys in the NBA that go out there and they don't score, but they just grab rebounds all day. I can't remember the guy's name, but I know there's one dude in the league that he'll get like 12 rebounds in a game, 6 assists, and 0 points on 0 shots. Like, won't even bother. Like, just gets the ball and immediately looks to pass. Like,
like Bam Adebayo is probably like one of your last like real centers, right? Where he doesn't necessarily have a great outside game whatsoever. Like a guy like look at Brook Lopez, right? Like Brook Lopez was a stereotypical center 10 years ago, and he's totally rechanged his game to the modern NBA. Which I don't fault the players for that. Just that's what they're being asked to do, right? Like 3-point numbers are off the chart. You're even starting to see that trickle into college basketball. Like Alabama does that analytical style of play. It works for them though.
And I think the great equalizer in college basketball is the tournament. The format of March Madness is the great equalizer of that. because
Yeah,
I
it
say it
doesn't
every time
work.
we talk about college basketball. Like that doesn't work when you get into a game, into a
Yeah, not
format where
4,
you have to
not
win 8
5
straight.
games. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah,
work
or
like
6,
that.
whatever it is. Yeah.
And then the NBA, it's like, oh, they're playing, maybe 3 nights a week, some nights, some weeks 2, some weeks 4,
Yeah, it works.
and you're pros, and it's a level playing field too. Everybody plays that way, so it's like, I don't know. It's just you gotta change the way your game's being played, and you can't, as a commissioner, right? Like you can't be like, oh, don't shoot, you can't shoot threes, like
Yeah.
can't do
Yeah.
that. What it's gonna take is a team that's like, okay, we can win without doing that. Like Eric Spoelstra for the Heat was one of the best coaches in the league, and like they went on a finals run with not that talented of a team. You know what I mean? You had great shooters, and they played in, sort of in a modern NBA, right? Like in their style, but like you have the other things too, and I think that's kind of what you need. I also don't like when people are like, "Oh, but they play fantastic defense. They're just the offense is so much better." It's like, that doesn't look very apparent when the Celtics score 140 against whoever. It's like, really? Are you sure? Like,
It's
doesn't look like that way
I
to
mean,
me.
the average NBA possession is drive and dish until somebody is left open.
Yeah.
I mean, sure that the defense exists in that they didn't let the first guy who drove have a dunk, and they didn't
Run
let the
right
second guy
through.
who drove. Yeah, like they're preventing them from getting the dunk, but these guys are shooting the 3 ball at a 40% clip, and all 5 guys on the court can shoot the 3 ball at a 30%
Yeah,
clip.
when's the last time you've seen a guy close out on a shot in the NBA?
They
They
can't
take
though.
2 steps, fake throw a hand up, and look at the ball.
It's just the way the game is now. Like you can't, because you do help defense when guys drive, and then all of a sudden you have a guy open, and the next closest guy is running from 6 feet over. And it's like that guy doesn't have a hand in his face. He's going to make it no matter what, or he's just going to brick it, and like we'll get the ball back. So I don't know how you fix it, just because of the way that analytics has changed it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in other sports, like rule changes or personnel changes are still like super prevalent. So you can still affect those things, like we talked about in baseball. And even in baseball, pitching matchups can affect those 3 outcome things. Oh, this guy hits right-handed pitching really well. Let's put in a lefty, and he's probably going to strike out. Like you can affect those things in different ways in baseball, and you can affect it in different ways in football. And you can affect, well, I guess hockey doesn't really have an example of that because hockey's have goalies,
No.
but
Yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying though. It's like
yeah,
you can actually make a rule where, hey, like banning the shift,
yeah.
things like that. I mean, you might think that's counterintuitive, but like you can still shift a little bit, but it's almost.
I mean, you can't have 6 guys on the same side of the field. And like as a hitter, like we never saw, well, I shouldn't say never, but very rarely did you see guys that just went the other way with it. They would just hit the way that they were hitting. And you're not going to sit here and tell me that they can't, because I can promise you
Yeah, they
every single
can.
hitter at that level can do it. They just didn't, because statistics say you're still probably more likely to get a hit doing your swing and beating the shift than you are trying to get out of your swing and go the
Yeah.
other way with it. So like those rule changes though affected the way that hitters were going about their business, and now it affects defenses the way that they do it. So like I just don't know how you do that in basketball. I genuinely have no ideas of like what you could even possibly do to say like this is the
Yeah.
solution to the problem.
Yeah, for fixing the actual product, it's kind of out of the NBA's hand. Like I said, I think it starts at a young age. Like the AAU, like that whole thing is killing basketball. And yeah, they're just in a pickle. But like there are things that the NBA can actually do, like reviewing the reviews at the end of the game. That could probably go away. Like, why does the final 2 minutes of an NBA game take 30? Make the refs are right half the time, anyways. Like as much poo poo as the refs get, like they're pretty good for the most part.
Outside
Like,
of the technical stuff, I don't know if you watch some of the technicals
yeah,
league,
it's
but
soft.
like
It's
it's
definitely,
nonsense now. Like it really is,
yeah,
and I think that turns people away from the game that would be like a casual viewer or somebody looking to get into it. If you watch a game and it's nothing but 3-pointers, and then you see the best player get teed up for being upset that he drew a foul, like,
yeah,
and not
like,
upset at the ref, but just like upset at the situation, like, oh shoot, I drew my 5th foul, and he's mad about it, and then you tee him up
yeah.
on it.
I think not so much in college, because I mean the college refs, that's a totally different animal. I'm talking just like professional NBA refs. I mean, don't get me started on NFL, but like NBA refs, I think there's a piece of that where we don't hear what the players say, because I think a lot of times the tempers flare up a little bit and they say
Some of
something
it.
they shouldn't.
Some of it, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, you see the same thing in MLB as well. I mean, dudes get ejected for things that we can't figure out half the time, but that's why people like John Boy exist, and they do the lip readings for us so we can
Yeah,
get the
exactly.
inside scoop.
Yeah. But even like baseball, it's like the players typically don't get mad unless like an umpire really messed up, right? And like you'll have the Angel Hernandez thing. He's an exception to the rule because he's terrible. He was terrible. But most of the umpires, like, I don't know if you've seen that MLB scorecard account. I hate
Yes.
that.
Yep.
I hate that account so much because it just totally takes any subjectivity out of baseball. It's like, oh, this guy missed this call by 2/4 of an inch. You know, 2/4 of an inch. I don't know if that's how you would say that. It would be half an inch, Jake. You know, you get what I'm saying, though. Like, oh, it's 0.18 inches off the black. It should have been a ball. It's like, yeah, but you didn't watch Dylan Cease like work for that corner for the last 7 innings. You know, I'm under the impression that like you have to earn that strike zone. Like if you set up inside and you miss 1.5 foot outside, but it's on the edge of the zone, you're not getting that call. You didn't try to throw it there. You know what I mean? But if you just take that scorecard, oh, look where this was. That should have been a strike.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. You know what I mean? So as frustrating as officials can be, like sometimes it's like, hey, you're just trying to blame someone and take a step back.
That's always part of why I like baseball so much, is because of the subjectivity of the umpires. And sure, like, and I think replay is like a good thing for it, but there's situations where, like, if someone is stealing second and they review the call because he thinks he was out and he was safe, but then at the last second of the replay, you see the foot come off and then they call him out because the foot came off, but the umpire didn't see that. Unless you challenge that specifically, if you say he came off the bag, challenge it, not just I think we got him. Like, I don't think they should count that. And like, I get it if you look at I get it if you look at the replay and he comes off the bag, he technically should be out. But if that's not what you're challenging, it drives me off the wall. It drives me crazy when you see that, because it's like, you know, the guy's sliding over the bag and his foot hits the bag and it comes up because of the way physics work. So it comes off the bag by that much, but just by like 1/4 inch. And they say, oh, he's out because he came off the bag. Like, if you didn't see that and you weren't going for that, like, you shouldn't get it. And I feel the same way about the automatic strike zone. Like,
yeah, I'm not a fan of that. No.
I think it would turn away so many baseball people from the game. I think it would, in my opinion, it would ruin the sport if you went to automatic. And I think the challenge system that they've tried with it is okay. Like, I haven't hated it, but you need to set limits to it. Like, you need to find a way to not have it abused, whereas guys are just like, nope, that's a strike, review it. And then you have that happening 2 to 3 times in a bat. Like, if you say you get 2 for the game,
you'll use it wisely.
Yeah. Whereas like someone might just come up there and say, oh, that, you know, if you get 1 per at bat, like, that's just going to ruin it. I think there's a way to implement it, but to actually like go to full automatic strike zone, I think would just ruin so much of it. And it would take away the catcher position as well. Catchers would just become your best hitter that won't get severely injured behind the plate with 95 coming at them. Like, there would be no art to catching.
Yeah, catching's bad right now. Like, the art of catching is like almost dead anyways. Like, it's all about who can hit now. I mean, name a good framer. There's like 2 of them. It's like really
there's a handful, and it's really interesting because what I have learned just listening to minor league players and pro players and development people talk, they're teaching catchers to steal strikes now. They say stealing strikes is more important than blocking. So I think a lot of the lack of defense we see is like nobody's a wall anymore. You see a lot of pass balls. And there's a reason for that because they don't care. They say the base that we give up is less important than us stealing, one. If we can steal 1 to 1.5 outs per game on framing, that's more important than us giving up a base or two on pass balls. So I don't care about that. Like more often than not, that's going to go in your favor. So that's like the way it's trending. So when we say defensively catchers are worse, I think a big piece of it is that you're not used to seeing guys just get down and dirty and block everything and be a wall. It's getting more towards how can I secure that quarter inch off the black, because umpiring is better than it's ever been. I mean, you just mentioned those scorecards. Like most umpires fall into the
90 to
96.
Yeah, they're really, really good.
Like and a bad day for an umpire is like 90%. Or like 89% is really bad, quote unquote, for an umpire.
Yeah, and they very rarely impact the outcome of the game, I feel like, too. It's not like baseball or not like basketball or football where, you see a missed call. I think football, it's more missed calls or like inserted pass interference calls, right? Like, but then again, baseball's so different. You have 4 umpires supervising essentially, and in football you've got all these moving parts. You've got 5 linemen to look at and wide receivers, and I mean there are instances where NFL officials are bad. I'm not trying to defend them because like even like that Kansas City game against the Raiders, like, oh really, that wasn't a false start, that was an illegal shift, so like you could just end the game there. Yeah, shocker. Basketball too, like I'm okay if refs miss calls. I don't like when they need to let us know they're there. I'd rather let them beat the crap out of each other than, call a foul on every possession. But we got a little away from the NBA, but that proves our point really well. Like within the confines of baseball or, a different team sport, you can kind of address the rules, right, to change your game in a desired way. I don't know how you do that in basketball. Maybe there's a way we haven't thought of, but it's not jumping out at me. Like I'm not really sure.
And I haven't heard anybody talk about it either. Like I think everyone has the same gripe with the sport, but I've never heard like, here's how we can fix it. Here's a couple of ways we can fix it. I think you would have to get absolutely absurd to the point where it would pretty much just make it a different sport.
Yeah. No. Like I think the real issue is like AA or AAU ball, and just kind of it starts at a young age, but there are little things that you can do in the NBA from like an officiating standpoint, a game flow standpoint. That's another thing. And like they're so focused on viewer retention and attention spans. It's like maybe get rid of every timeout you have. Like they have 12 timeouts. Like, why do they have so many? Oh, we got to pay the ad deals or commercials. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing the fan doesn't want. They don't want to have 48 minutes of gameplay coupled with 60 minutes of commercials. Oh, we might experiment going to 40-minute games, 10-minute quarters. You're gonna just jam another commercial in there. Be honest about it. Like, we're not dumb. Don't lie to us. Like, I mean, like, you want your cake and you want to eat it too. It's like, oh, we don't want to lose any of the ad revenue from commercials, but our players are complaining about our gauntlet of a schedule and we can't keep fans, so let's just try this. It's like, I don't know who's giving these people these like who's doing these studies to be like, oh, this will help. Like, no, it won't. Like the problem is something you, like we discussed, you really can't solve. Sure, like the flops and the technical foul, you can clean up the officiating a little bit and get rid of TV timeouts, but I don't think that's the reason why people are leaving to begin with. So,
no, I agree. Have you been to an NBA game recently? When's the last NBA game you were at?
I've never been to an NBA game. Probably never.
Okay. So,
yeah,
I have been to a couple of Nuggets games I'll just say like within the last like 5 years. So like within this time frame where basketball has really shifted into this, it's a really weird experience. Like music plays for 90% of the time you're there.
Yeah,
nobody is into it. Even in person, like I always make the joke, like NBA games don't start until the fourth quarter. Like whatever happens, it's irrelevant. The fourth quarter is the only thing that matters in the NBA. I think that's relatively true. And even if you're at a game, like most of the fans are not into it until the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Anyways,
they're
you just kind of
hanging
sit
out.
around and you're just hanging out. You're watching, I suppose, maybe watching a couple
Well,
plays here
well,
and
I
there.
mean, if you watch
And the
a
Nuggets
game
are
on,
good. And
yeah,
like this isn't,
they are.
and that's my point. Like the Nuggets are good. I don't know if it's just that's the experience of a Denver sports fan, because quite honestly,
I don't
it's
think
kind of
so.
Colorado's a weird sports place, because even Avs games, like you would think people would be really into the Avs with how good they've been, and they're not as into them as you would think.
Yeah, I think hockey's a little different. It's just like the fan base is a little more ravenous, I think. But like I kind of see why the fans aren't into the NBA so much. It's like you do this 82 times, you're at home 41 times a year, and it's like the players don't even seem to care that much. Why would you? You know what I
There's a
mean? Like,
lot of and back to the schedule thing. There's so many like quote unquote throwaway games in the NBA. Like the fact that you can actually afford to not play your three best players, I'll just say like 18 games, 19 games a year. Like that's crazy. Like you can afford to not play your best players 20% of the time over the course of a season.
yeah,
There's no other sport you can do that.
Try that in football. Like your
Yeah,
season's ruined.
it would be like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce sitting out for weeks 3, 6,
2
9, and
yeah.
12.
Yeah, right. And like the AFC West is like the best it's ever been. Yeah, I know, it makes no sense. Well, maybe we kind of walked into that one. Maybe that's why they're looking to shorten the schedule, but I don't think I think you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. You know what I mean? Maybe they just pay them by game.
We're blowing up the contract system.
You get your base salary, and every game you play is commission. I don't know.
It's all bonus.
Yeah, that would ruin the game. You'd have an all-star team. The Lakers would have an all-star team and still be bounced in the first round of the playoffs. Now, I don't get it. Like, I don't watch it, so maybe like you don't watch it either.
I might
so maybe
know.
we're
I might
like
just be out of touch. Yeah,
maybe, but like you made a good point. It's like you go on Twitter and you don't see anybody like posing solutions to it. All they do is bitch about it. So like, are we really that far off? I don't think we are.
Think so.
I don't think so. Like, I don't know, but even like back to the All-Star game thing, like what was the best part of it? Oh, look at all these celebrities people
game.
don't give a shit. You follow them on Twitter and like you see what they have to say there. Like they don't freaking care.
To me, it's like the only like watchable piece. I equate it to like the celebrity softball game that the MLB does, which is also pretty fun. But it's like I would never sit down and watch the entire. And I don't sit down and watch the celebrity softball game either, but I'll watch the beginning of it. I'll watch 2 innings.
Yeah, you watch the first 10 minutes, and
I'll watch the highlights of it. I wouldn't even watch 10 minutes of it because it's just gross. Like I will watch the highlights of it because that's like the entertainment of it.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston will get pissed off about a ball that landed on a plate or something, gets ejected for show. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not into that. Some people are though. Like I get it, but I don't know. It's like the NBA is so very clearly doing it about money, and it's like, come on, like we're not dumb. Like we totally know. We see you. You know what I mean? I don't know. See, and like the schedule's never going to be shortened either because the players are going to still want to get paid the same amount, and the owners are going to be like, "Hell no, you're not," and then we're going to be stuck right where we are. So, I don't know. That was a little long-winded All-Star game discussion that I'm sure everyone would have tuned out by now. But you got anything else to add? That was a little fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was. I always enjoy just getting off the rails. We had a short list of topics today, so it's nice.
Yeah, the show. It was definitely not structured today, but honestly, like, what am I gonna do? Name random college basketball teams again? But next couple of weeks we will be much deeper into college basketball with the conference tournament coming up and March Madness very soon approaching. So, anything else? Well, we can wrap this bad.
It's coming in hot. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Substack so these get sent right to your email. And that's all I got. You got anything else?
We'll be picking up the writing too, because We've been
More to come.
little bit 0 dark 30 the last couple of weeks. Hit my bookie pretty hard this week, so I was really in the lab, and I'm sure as soon as I check my phone, it will be all back to him. But that's all right. We'll catch you guys next time.